All right, folks, welcome to the Sunday afternoon call. It's about 4 o'clock on Thailand in the afternoon. Good for Sunday morning in the UK. It's actually quite late at night, about 2 a.m. on the West Coast, but that's not going to stop us. Today, we'll talk about basically a continuation of what we've been talking about in the sense of what is counterfeit Dhamma versus what is the actual teachings of the Buddha. And that the big distinction that can be made is that counterfeit Dhamma generally is a slow progression, a long, slow slog, with perhaps a lot of rules. It generally starts with sila. There's actually a very interesting sutta, number 107, that talks about the path and a long list of things that are talked about before it gets down to removal of the hindrances. And we could say then that when we talk about the removal of the hindrances, now we're getting into the real teachings of the Buddha. We can see, in fact, hindrances have a lot of different words that we could use. In the suttas, it uses the word obstructions as well as hindrances. And other places it uses words like unwholesome thoughts, unwholesome mental states, such as victim states. And that along with that gradual path, there are a number of items that are listed that come, let us say, early in a beginning student's practice. In fact, the beginner's path, or the long, slow path that can be considered counterfeit, starts with sila and then adds some other things to it, like sense restraint. Now, sila, or morality, basically is a set of rules to where the Buddha has it set up that a fetter is attachments to rites, rules, and rituals. So it looks like then that the long, slow path, we have to learn something and then later unlearn it. Along with sila, there's also a topic called sense restraints. Now, sense restraints actually, even though it's part of the long, slow process, one of the issues about sense restraints, just like sila, is that people have a lot of resistance to it. They don't like that practice. And so once the mind gets to the point of the removal of the hindrances and sees how happy the mind can be, then the sense restraints, the restraints of the senses, becomes a natural part of the practice. Just like sila becomes the natural outcome of the practice. Now, we could say that the long, slow counterfeit path would be actually what you would use to train children, because children are not wise enough to see things clearly for themselves. That, in fact, one of the indications of this is that in order to become a bhikkhu, in order to ordain, one must be at the age of 20. In the West, we call this also sometimes the age of reason or even adulthood. So you could say then that the noble Dhamma is for adults, and that the slow, long process is taught to children in the form of rules or rule keeping, in the sense that an example would be it's not a wise idea to kill people. Well, if it's not a wise idea to kill people, that means that there's going to be results to it. Or more likely for children, it's to not steal or to take things that are not given to you. Because if a child takes something, here's an example of that would be that the little boy takes food off of his sister's plate at supper time while she and no one else is looking, but then she looks back at her plate and her food is gone and it's on her brother's plate. If he is not taught properly that this is not a wise thing to do, that there will be repercussions, then he will get the idea that he can take things and get away with it. So, in that regard, what we mean by that is that greed and wanting things to own and to hold things is actually instinctual, that we have basic instincts, and that when we go instinctually, we just take what we want without recognizing or understanding the repercussions to it. So, we would want to teach these kids to not take things that are not given and set up a rule for it. This can also be done for salmonin or boys that are ordained as children monks. Now, one of the, let us say, enduring situations have been that families will, not just orphans, but mothers and fathers will allow their young sons to be ordained at a young age so that they have a chance of getting an education from the educated monks. This is still true in Cambodia, where they don't have a decent education system, and it's also practiced in Laos and uh, Myanmar, but it's not taught so much now in Thailand because Thailand now has a decent education system and they train the children, and so the parents are not so much interested in putting their children into the Sangha. But one of the things then that the children have to learn is how to act like a monk, even as children. And this is where they are trained in sila and trained in sense restraint, and also trained in wakefulness and some of the other practices that go against our natural instincts. So we could almost say that the practice of sila is what ordinary people do, and that when people come on to our Discord group here, one of the things that is normally assumed, perhaps wrongly, is that the children are not children anymore. They're now adults. We don't have any real children on the website except for perhaps one or two occasionally. And that uh, we have instead, we have adults that have already been trained in sila enough for ability to get along in society.
Mhm.
So we bypass that and go directly to the actual training of the Buddha, and that we can then look at sense restraints as well as sila and look at it because it does have some value. And what is sense restraint? Well, the example that I would give is that when children are riding in an automobile, they'll look out the window just like the dog does. And he's looking at all the things that are going by and not paying attention to the road. That's the job of the driver. But once you're an adult, you've got to be the driver of your own life. And now it's time to pay attention to what's happening. Pay attention to what's on the road. Little old ladies can jump out into the street. Motorcyclists can run a red light and all of that kind of stuff. And so it's necessary to start paying attention to the road. We don't now then have, let us say, the time or the opportunity to look at every billboard, every advertisement, every beautiful tree, every fence that we pass by on the road. That we've got to start looking at where we're going. So this would be what we call sense restraint in that ordinary way. Now let's start thinking about it in the practice. And in the practice is wherever you go, we have to decide what we're going to allow to come in and what not to allow to come in. An example of that would be, let us say, Las Vegas. All of you have seen photos. I'm not sure how many of you have actually been to Las Vegas. I've been there. And that one of the words that can be used to describe the place is gaudy. It is lit up far more than any Christmas tree. There's lights everywhere. They flash, they go back and forth in rows, and they do anything they can to get you your attention, hoping that if you see the lights on this particular casino, that will draw you in to that casino. Well, you can think of that as anything along the road of life. That sense restraint then would mean don't pay attention to the gaudy lights of life. This could also be true when you're just sitting in your room or on your cell phone. One of the examples that I've seen several times is the issue of a woman standing in the parking lot looking at her cell phone while her baby's carriage is sitting right there and a car backs up right into the baby carriage. Meanwhile, someone comes by and moves the baby carriage so that it doesn't get hit by the backing up car, and the woman sees somebody trying to steal her baby, and then she looks and sees what's that and gets all angry when in fact the real problem was that she wasn't paying attention to what was going on around her. And so the rest of this little video segment will be that the guy who saved the child from being hit by the car grabs the woman's cell phone and throws it on the ground, breaking it in his own rage, trying to teach her that she's not paying attention to what's going on. She's not restraining her senses so as to make sure that she's paying attention to that which needs to be paying attention to, like her child, that she's on the cell phone. So you could think then that one of the ways that we can begin to understand sense restraint is to stay off of the cell phone. It's really, really hard to watch your breathing and to watch your thought process when you're on your cell phone, when the things that you're looking at are intended to get you excited and uptight. That's especially true with news and political shows and other things like that. Also, corporations have a lot of stuff, especially Tesla. And you'll have hundreds of videos about how bad Tesla is and it's falling apart and they're about to go bankrupt. And then you'll have another 100 videos about how wonderful Tesla is and how good it's doing and how much money the stock market is going to return for you if you only invest in Tesla. And the stock market is up and down and up and down and up and down, depending upon which videos people are watching. That in fact, the stock for Tesla is quite volatile, partly because it's got a lot of enemies, and those enemies are on YouTube, and it's got a lot of friends, and those friends are on YouTube. My point would be then is to be careful about what you're watching doing on your cell phone. That would be especially true with games. There are some games that are worthwhile playing because it keeps the mind sharp and focused. There is also a lot of games. Most of the games that are played, by the way, have to do with chasing and hunting and carrying guns or stealing cars or doing all kinds of unwholesome things. And so um, the way to look at it is don't play games that invite you into being restless, excited. Don't play games or watch videos that want to get you to invest or to buy something. Don't watch videos that are um, trying to get you to be angry at this politician or that Putin or whoever like that. That this is how you can use the cell phone. In fact, you could go so far as to say that the cell phone now should be your number one item for deciding whether you're going to restrain your senses or not. There's some things, in fact, most of the stuff that you'll find on YouTube is really not worth watching, and that much of it is downright dangerous. But I'm not giving you a rule, thou shalt not be on the cell phone. That's something that you can decide for yourself based on wisdom, because there's a lot of Dhamma on the cell phone. So I would suggest that if you're going to be on the cell phone, then look at documentaries, look at Dhamma, and pay attention to that, as opposed to all of the violence and all of the greed that brings the mind into a state of hindrance. This is what we would mean by sense restraint. So, Rick, does that answer your question about sense restraint?
Um, my apologies, I did miss the first part, but I do think that everything you say is helpful, and I recognize that when I am using my cell phone and all these type of things, that you get extra, yeah, fiery, so to speak. But yeah, it's also like my question was relating to not only preventing it, but when you are in that state, I feel like I've found a lot of benefit in trying to relax myself before basically um, getting rid of dukkha, because I feel like if you put it down and it's kind of like still you're feeling some type of fiery feeling, then it's hard to uh, I don't know. There's like a feeling of lingering. You don't know how far you need to put it to get really rid of it. Like, I don't know if I'm making a lot of sense, but
Yes,
uh,
you are. In fact, you're making a very important point is that if we are on the cell phone and then we say, "Oh, I've had enough of this stuff. Let me sit here and relax and practice anapanasati." At that point, when you start, anapanasati is going to have to deal with the lingering of all of this sensual input that you haven't restrained.
mm,
So the right way to do it is to practice the restraint as you're watching those videos, going from one video to another. Always ask yourself, is this video actually worth looking at? And you can ask yourself along the way. If that video is 5 minutes long, maybe every 30 seconds you should ask, is this video worth watching? In fact, what you can wind up doing is don't watch a whole video all the way through, because they're normally unwholesome. How long does it take you to figure out that this new video that you're watching is unwholesome? They want something from you. They want you to be angry at this or that, or they want you to go get this or that, or they're wanting to stir you up in some way. that this is what the cell phones are for. If they didn't have that quality, people would not, in fact, be making these videos and putting them on YouTube. And YouTube wants you to watch them because they're in competition with Netflix and other things, and so they want as much garbage on YouTube as possible. Okay, so the garbage industry is immense. It's huge, and it's very enticing and wanting you to be there. And that if you get all flustered and worried or whatever like that because of politics or whatever, then when you set the cell phone down, there's that lingering restlessness, and it may take you 3 or 4 minutes, depending upon what you're practicing, to come out of that restlessness, out of that anxiety that you put yourself in by watching those videos. So better to choose, if you're going to be watching videos, to watch videos of forest or animals or flute music or maybe a symphony orchestra or something like this that does not have the intention to work you up. A lot of good music out there, but most of the really good music is classical music. Much of the modern music wants you to do something. They want you to get up and dance and jump and scream and shout and go along with whatever is happening on stage, to where it's not soothing music like chamber music or concertos or whatever like that, that will actually put your mind right into the music. The same thing is true with games, as I mentioned. Some games are actually quite valuable. It gets your mind focused and concentrated. Even some card games are like that, or let's say Mahjong or Sudoku or other games like that, to where the games that you have to buy are almost always action games, where there's a whole lot of stuff happening, that you're being chased or you're chasing someone or you're trying to find a treasure or whatever like that gets you all uptight. And so if you're playing games, be careful about the kind of games that you're playing, because some of them are wholesome and beneficial, and many of them are, in fact, downright dangerous. This is what we would mean by sense restraint. Is start to look at what is the value of the stuff that you're looking at. And if you can come to the point that, well, nothing of it is much of value, let me sit here and just enjoy the moment, that's better. In other words, go ahead and restrain the senses down to where there's really nothing much happening. In that regard, if you're going to go on a walk, it's better to go on a nature walk, go on to where you have a lot of plants and trees and shrubs and whatnot, as opposed to going down a city street. Because city streets are quite active. There's a lot of stuff going on. So this is what we mean by sense restraint. Now, as I said, young monks actually should stay in the Wat, because staying in the Wat is actually a kind of sense restraint. There's a huge difference. Let us say, even in Bangkok, you have a huge number of city Wats, and every one of the Wats there is kind of like a sanctuary. As soon as you come into the Wat, all of a sudden it's quiet. You don't hear the road noise. They normally have it so that the whole place is circled with buildings, so that when you enter the Wat, with the fencing and whatever, it immediately gets quiet. It gets undisturbed. But if the monk leaves that Wat back into the city traffic of Bangkok, wow, what a distinction it is. And so they highly recommend that the monks stay in the Wat, simply because of that issue of sense restraint, and also because of the sila, that you're much more likely to go and do something wrong, or harm someone, or get in the way of something, or buy something you don't need, etc., if you're outside the Wat, and so it's better to stay in the Wat. This is that point that I'm making here is quite valuable, not just for monks, but for everybody. Don't go out shopping because there's full of all kinds of stuff to get interested in. If you don't go to Walmart, you're unlikely to buy anything. If you do go to Walmart, you're more than likely going to buy more than you went to Walmart for. That's especially true with women. And you could say that that's not inherent, or it's not part of the DNA. It's more of how we have been trained over many, many centuries. And I'm making the distinction between hunting and gathering. When men go shopping, they go hunting. Often they even have a list that their wife gave them. Go get milk and eggs and coffee and sugar. And so he goes to the store and gets milk and eggs and coffee and sugar because that's what's on his list. He's hunted those items down. He leaves the store. If his wife takes that same list into the store, she's going to come out with a whole grocery cart full of stuff. Why? Because of her lack of sense restraint. She didn't go hunting, she went gathering, and everything she saw she liked, she put it in the grocery cart. So, men will do that too, and women can go hunting. So, that would be something about sense restraint is when you go shopping, go hunting. Don't go shopping. Don't go gathering stuff. There's a difference. And the difference is often double or triple the price of what you have to pay. So this is another way of sense restraint. But I tell you what, if you really want to practice sense restraint, don't go to the store. Because Walmart and Gucci bags and dress shops and motorcycle dealerships and car dealerships, they all dress up their shop to get you to buy stuff. They want you to purchase. They stay in business because you buy things you don't need. If everybody bought just what they need, the economy would be in perpetual recession. So only buy what you actually need. Don't buy things that you don't need. And then, as you grow and mature in this, begin to even question the things that you need. You may not need that at all. An example of that is I saw a 5-bay. That's an enclosure for having 5 drives, and I saw one for 650 baht. So I said, "Oh, that's a good price. I'll buy one." And when it came not as a 5-bay. It came as a 1-bay. False advertisement. And so I sent it back. But after I bought it the first time, now I want it. So now I've got to go buy a 5-bay at the full price. It hasn't arrived yet. So this is an example then of sense restraint. Don't buy things that you don't need, because then you won't have to replace them, because once you think that you need it, now you need it. And before I got the good price on that 5-bay, I didn't need a 5-bay, but now I need one. How much of your life have you spent like that, thinking, right now I don't need it, and now I need it? And nothing has changed except the mind itself. So, as we continue on with this practice, let's get into the practice of removing of the hindrances, because that's exactly what we really need to do, is to be able to see you see, this sense restraint is a preparation for your ability to see the hindrances. But if we're going to just go right into the real Dhamma, we need to start looking at our greed. We want things that we don't need simply because we saw them for sale. And so if we start restraining our senses, then we can restrain ourselves from wanting and needing things that in fact we don't actually need. Let's start practicing as if there was in your own life a huge major recession. I like the other the word for it would be become an expert at being a cheap Charlie. Don't get into debt. In fact, the Buddha is quite big on debt. Did you know that you cannot join the Sangha? You cannot ordain if you're in debt? Now, the reason for that would be that if you ordain now, you don't have much of an income, you're not buying anything, but you still owe that money. You don't have the money. And so the creditor will be coming to the wat to get the money out of the wat. So it's better when you ordain, don't owe anybody anything, because that will make life easier for you. But you can take that out to the lay life and recognize that being in debt is painful. You don't like to make those mortgage payments. You don't like being broke because you got to pay for the stuff that you bought. And look, most of the Americans are in debt up to here, every one of them. Even when you college, you got a big college loan that you got to pay. Why don't you just work your way through college, enjoy your life, and not have any debt? So this would be sense restraint, would mean that when you're practicing sense restraint correctly, you're free from debt. You don't owe anybody anything. How many of you right now are completely debt free? You don't owe anybody anything. Any hands? All right, see a couple of people. All right. That's the way to live your life, is living your life completely free from debt. And the only way that you can get to be debt free is by being completely free from sensual desire. And the only way that you can be completely free from sensual desire is by guarding the senses, because it's a jungle out there and they want you to buy everything that's for sale. That's one of the problems with people who get money, or rich people, is that they can't constrain their senses. If you won the lottery and you have $1 million, why don't you put that $1 million into savings? Why do we have to go buy 2 or 3 Lamborghinis? By the time you bought 3 Lamborghinis, you're broke. So this is the way that we can think of it. Or if you get an inheritance, don't spend that inheritance. Put it away. Have a thought of, I'll let you use it for the next generation. I don't need to spend the money. That everything is easy going, and this is a way of living one's life free from debt, and also the security that comes from having a couple of $300,000 or $400,000 in the bank. No matter what happens, you're good for the rest of your life. Don't worry about it anymore. But when you're in debt, is that something to worry about? Yeah. Okay. So don't get in debt. If you are in debt now, you can use this talk to make the strong determination that you're going to get out of debt. You're not going to be owing anybody anything. That in fact you can ordain if you owe money. But even if you're not planning on ordaining, it's certainly better to be debt free, to not owe anybody anything. That gives you, by the way, very low credit score. A credit score, a high credit score, means that you buy a lot of stuff and you pay it off, and you buy more stuff and you pay it off. The only person that I've ever met who had a really top-notch high credit score was my own mother. Her credit score when she was alive was hobbled around 800. And when I was looking at my own credit score way back when, I could barely top 700. Why? Because I didn't buy enough stuff. I didn't buy enough credit. I didn't pay it off enough. So I would recommend don't try to have a high credit score. Instead, have no credit score at all, because you're not buying anything on credit. You don't owe anything. There's no credit to have. And so this is a good credit score, is a credit score where you don't owe anything. Now, let's continue on with the rest of the talk, because I want to cover another topic. Does anybody have any questions about sense restraint? You got it, huh? No questions. So let's talk now a little bit about ignorance, because ignorance actually plays a huge part in this. In the Four Noble Truths, the cause of dukkha is listed as moha, lobha, dosa. Now, dosa actually means ill will, and lobha means wanting things, lusting for things, needing things. But moha actually is a word for ignorance. Another word for ignorance is a jiva. Now, we can think of two kinds of ignorance. There is wise ignorance, where you don't know something and you know that you don't know it. That's very, very rare. Why? Because we've been talked out of it. An example of that is multiple choice test in school. That if you don't know the answer, it's better to guess than to leave the question completely blank. Because who knows? You may get it right. You got 1 in 25 or 1 in 5 chances of getting it right. So we have been taught to guess. We've been taught that if you don't know something, make some shit up. Almost every argument is based upon that one premise. That if you don't know something and you want to stay in that argument, make some shit up. Make some numbers up. Now, this is actually a different kind of ignorance than the ignorance of you don't know and you don't you know you don't know. And that the next one is you don't know, but you don't know that you don't know, that you think that you know. You make something up. This is called delusion. And I would go so far as to say that in the Pali, there's a difference between jiva and jiva in the sense of not knowing versus knowing not. Not knowing is wise when you know that you don't know, but not knowing not is different than that, because you know something, but it's not true. This is actually the number one issue. An example of that going we back to what we were talking about earlier. We need something, and we know we need it, but we don't at all. That's delusional. Don't need that thing. So why am I buying it? Oh, well, it looked pretty in the store. Or I thought about using it and thinking, oh, I can use that. And oh, I can use that into, oh, I need to buy it. So you can see the jump from ignorance into delusion. We are deluded. Almost everything that you buy that you can't eat, and a lot of stuff that you can eat, is bought because of delusion, not because of actual need for it. So delusion is actually throughout all of the teachings of the Buddha. Another example of that would be when something bad happens and you don't like it, you'll blame someone else. Oh, I'm poor because the economy is bad. No, you're poor because you didn't manage what resources you had correctly, whether the economy is good or bad. So you can't blame the economy. You can't blame Donald Trump. You can't blame Putin. You can't blame your sister. You can't blame anybody wisely. That all the blaming and finding fault and whatnot is different than recognizing the causes and the effects, because the real causes are not on the outside. The cause and effect relationship is always on the inside. And so recognizing that is actually a kind of wisdom, and thinking that the cause for my problem is on the outside, that's just a kind of delusion. Now, there's another way of looking at ignorance, and that is when we say ignorance means that we don't know, we can say, oh, well, I'm ignorant because I don't know calculus, or my calculus skills are rusty, or I don't know all of what happened in the 3rd century. This is about knowledge. Now, within the context of the Buddhadasa, that's not got anything to do with the actual teachings. What the actual teachings are about is the ignorance of who you are. Who am I? And if you think that you're something like an accountant, people will say, I'm an accountant, I'm a lawyer. That's delusional. Even if you have a law degree and you're practicing law, that doesn't make you a lawyer, not all the time, hopefully not all the time. Wow, what a restless, unhappy life that would be if the lawyer was lawyering all the time. So we put labels on ourselves and say, I am this and I am that. And that's delusional. It's better to not label oneself. Now, the other part of that is that we can also recognize that all dukkha is caused by this ignorance. It's not caused because of greed, because if the greed is wise, we can deal with it wisely. But if our greed is ignorant, then we'll buy all kinds of things that we don't need, including trouble. So the important point about ignorance is that we, in our regard, is that we apply it to the Dhamma. And so I've talked about this before. There are supposedly 10 fetters, and that the highest fetter of all is ignorance. We start off ignorant, and we learn a lot of stuff, but we don't learn it all. And then we stay ignorant for our whole lives. We get wise. There's an actual word for that. It's called sophomore. The word sophomore is actually 2 Greek words that are put together that means wise fool. And so we get some knowledge and we think that we know it all, when in fact we don't know it all. But if you know something and you know that you know that and no more, and that you're ignorant, that would be wisdom. Wisdom is to know the limits of your knowledge. But as I said before, the real issue of ignorance is not knowledge on the outside, it's knowledge of what's going on the inside. So if there is a hindrance that arises and you don't see that hindrance, that's ignorance. Someone just recently said, oh, well, I know greed and I know ill will, but I'm not sure about ignorance. When he said that, he's making 2 mistakes. There's 2 points of ignorance in there. One is that he doesn't even know what ignorance means, but the more important one was that he said that he knew what ill will was, and he said he knew what greed was, where in fact he doesn't. If he did know what greed and ill will was, then he would know that the major issue of greed and ill will is ignorance. That's an important point that you can recognize is that almost all of your greed and all of your ill will, an example of ill will would be blaming someone else for your own problems or wanting and needing something that you really don't need at all. So this is the way that we practice is that when we're removing the hindrances, what we're actually removing is ignorance. When we want something and we say, I don't have to think about that right now, I'm okay without it, that's throwing that ignorance out and bringing in wisdom. Everything is okay, no problems, no worries. That's wise. But you say, oh, I've got no worries except for my sister. Then that's ignorance. That's not ill will for your sister so much as that it's ignorance. That if you were not ignorant, there would be no ill will for your sister. So, ill will and greed cannot happen without ignorance. Also, selfishness cannot happen without ignorance. Restlessness does not happen without ignorance. And so when you see the restlessness, it will go away. I've had people say, well, how do I deal with anxiety? The number one thing is to see it. Because if you can't see it, the anxiety is going to remain there. But if you can see it, you can do something about it. You can change it. How do you change anxiety? Well, you were probably in a state of anxiety because you were worried about something that caused the anxiety. You were ignorant of the cause of it. You were actually creating that anxiety and didn't see that you were creating it. But when you wake up to see the anxiety, you can go back and say, oh, the reason that I was full of anxiety now is because I was thinking about something that gives me anxiety. Let me not think about that. Let me take a deep breath and relax. And guess what? The anxiety will go away, probably in less than 1 minute's time. It'll go away. The anxiety came because you created the anxiety ignorantly. And when you're wise to the anxiety, it will just float away. Now, what actually is anxiety means that you've got chemicals in the body that are inappropriate for this particular moment. This goes back way back into our history, long time ago, whenever primitive humans had danger, the danger was immediate. And so the body chemicals would get you ready for fight or flight right then and there. But anxiety, what is that? That means that you're ready to fight, you're ready to flight, except that there's no place to go and there's nothing to do. There's no place to go and nothing to do. And here you are already all dressed up for to go out and there's no place to go.
Mhm.
So all we have to do to get rid of that anxiety is stop preparing for battle in our own minds and say, everything is okay. I see that anxiety. Let me just relax. The same thing with fear. Whenever you're afraid, in fact, I've heard recently someone say that they were afraid of the dark. The dark never hurt anybody. The dark never hurt anybody. In fact, the only thing that can hurt you is things that are hiding in the dark, but most of the darkness that we have is within our own mind. And so when we become afraid of the dark, that means that we're actually inventing things in the dark. Oh, there's a bear in the closet. Oh, there's a boogeyman under my bed. Or, oh, there's a bill to pay. And so we get uptight because we made that shit up. If we can become wise and we recognize that that fear has a source, and if we have better thoughts, if we have better attitude, we can say, oh, there's no reason to fear. I mean, look around the room that you're in right now. Nothing in the room to fear. How about you, Timo? Do you have any alligators? Is there a Russian mafia breaking down your door?
No,
No.
nothing
Okay.
clear.
But if you think about that argument you had with your boss, is not fear going to arise because of the boss is in your head? Because the
Yeah,
real boss is not there.
but I also don't have arguments with the boss.
So whenever you have a thought of, oh, I'm going to lose my job, guess what? You just invented that. You're making up a reality. And the likelihood is that you might lose your job because you just created that reality in your own mind. I might lose my job. But if you have the attitude instead, oh, well, I'm just going to be friends with the boss generally doesn't fire his friends. He fires people who are afraid of him, who hide from him, who sneak around. They're the ones who get fired. But if you're friends with the boss, he's likely not going to fire you. And so having happy, wholesome thoughts about the boss would be Dhamma. Make friends with him. The same thing, though, is more true about yourself. It is often we are critical of ourselves. The criticalness, by the way, comes from making rules like sila. Sila bhatta paramasa means attachments to rules, and we got tons of rules. You could also use the word shoulds, woulds, coulds, concepts, how things ought to be. If you think that things ought to be a certain way and they're not, you're probably going to feel bad because of that. But if you're willing to see things just the way that they are and that that's okay, now we can relax. So then you could say that the entire practice of the Eightfold Noble Path is to relax the thoughts, to relax the body, to relax our attitude, and to really relax our feelings. And when feelings are relaxed, that means that we have no fear, that we are feeling safe and secure. That's not the same as fearless. Fearless actually means that you are brave in the face of danger. When we say feeling safe and secure, that means there's no danger. So begin to see you've got no danger. You don't have to be brave in the face of danger. You could just walk off. There's no danger. Almost all the dangers that you'll ever have in your life, you made that shit up. And so if you have no dangers, you can feel safe, feel secure. You can feel comfortable. You can feel relaxed. You can feel satisfied. And this word satisfied is a major point in the practice of anapanasati. Why? Because dukkha is being dissatisfied and disappointed. But if you are satisfied, then where's your dissatisfaction? That's all there is to the teaching of the Buddha, is just become satisfied with the way things are right now. And you've done everything that you needed to do. The job that needed to be done has just been done. You're satisfied right now. But then if you think, oh, I need that 5-bay, now you become dissatisfied again. Or, oh, I need milk. Oh, I've got to go shopping. That's being dissatisfied again. But if you can come to the point of, oh, I don't need milk right now. I'm okay right now. Everything is fine right now. Then you can go back into that state of satisfaction. And when you practice satisfaction over and over and over again, sometimes kind of thoughts that will arise would be what I call wow thoughts. Wow, I'm really satisfied. Wow, I could be satisfied anytime I want to be satisfied. Wow, this is great. Wow, I am finished with being dissatisfied. And so you can continue to have those kind of thoughts. Those are wholesome, healthy thoughts that are actually not ignorant. But when you say, oh, I'm dissatisfied, generally you're dissatisfied because you made shit up. You made something up. Oh, I need this and oh, I need that. And when I get this and that, then I'll be satisfied. No, that's ignorance. That's, in fact, delusional. Whatever it is, you don't need it. You're already okay just the way you are. That's a major teaching of the Buddha is that you're already okay. So when you're a young kid learning sila, learning sense restraints, learning to be wakeful, learning all of those skills that they teach the children, guess what? Children are actually trained to be dissatisfied. They're trained to be unhappy. They're trained to be not good enough and needing to do something. And so we need now to untrain ourselves, to untrain that I need something, and to see that, in fact, you're okay just the way you are. You've got no reason to want anything. Wow, what a relief it is. Wow, I could relax because I got everything I need. So, Rick, what do you think? Are you relaxed? You got everything you need right now?
Right now, I'm very relaxed and I have everything I need.
You have everything you need. You can be relaxed. All you have to do is sustain that, to keep practicing being in that state. So, how about you, Paul? Are you relaxed right now?
Yes. Yes.
All right. All you have to do is just maintain that. Just remember that you're already okay. You got no problems, no worries. You got no dangers. Everything is already okay. How about you, Ben?
All is good.
Everything is okay. All right. So, how about you, Clara? Are you all right? Everything is okay?
Hey, good morning.
Hey,
Yeah, everything is fine. I had a question.
okay.
Uh, may I ask, please? You said early that there are some kind of desire greeds. There are some kind of greeds that are good, in fact. So can you give some examples or one examples of good form good good forms of uh, greed?
First off, the important point would be that the greed is wise, that is actually correct. The Buddha had 4 requisites: just enough food, just enough housing, just adequate clothing, and just enough medical care. Now, there's an awful lot of people all over the world that is missing 1, 2, or all 4 of those things. So, in order for you to correctly practice, and that's in fact one of the main reasons in the old days why people would ordain and go to the Wat, because all 4 of those things will be met. You may not get all you want to eat. You certainly won't get a full wardrobe. You won't get a mansion, but you'll get a little hut. You'll get one thing to wear. You'll get adequate food, and you will get adequate medicine. Now, in the time of the Buddha, there were several medicines that were quite common, and one of them was cow's urine. In fact, they used urine for all kinds of things, including washing clothes and disinfectant and things like this. And we would be grossed out to think that urine was a medicine. And yet, a lot of the medicines that we are given by the doctor, we don't need. Most of the medicines are unuseful, but they make a big profit off of them. It's very interesting. In fact, we go to the doctor and say, "Oh, I've got this one illness." And he says, "Oh, we'll take these 2 pills for it." And then we go back to the doctor and says, well, now I still have that problem, but I feel uptight and anxious. Instead of changing those medicines, says, oh, well, they didn't work, let's not use that. Instead, he'll add a third medicine. And you go to the doctor again, he'll add a fourth or a fifth. And I've seen people who had prescriptions for as many as 20 medicines. Why? Because none of them worked. So I would say that that's not adequate. Most of the, in fact, of the medicines would be, I'm okay. In fact, Reader's Digest for years, it was my favorite for many, many years. That when Reader's Digest was doing their publications, they had a section always, laughter is the best medicine. So if you've got laughter, you've got one of the best medicines that you can use. That if you can laugh it off, that's the way to do it. So
So
those would
basically,
be. Go ahead.
sorry. So basically, you are saying that every greed of surviving, of things that provides you for just survive. It's a kind of a good greed, right? Because
Right.
you said
I wouldn't call
clothes,
it good greed. I would call it wise
yes,
wanting.
wise greed. For example, if you are starving and you have greed for food, so that type of greed is a wise greed, right?
Yes, right. It's hunger. It's a feeling. It's a sensation. The body is telling you you need something. And when you get adequate food, most people keep eating. They eat what's on the plate rather than eating until there's no more hunger. If people only ate what they needed, uh, the amount of groceries that would be purchased would go down. But we often eat all that's there rather than eat what we need to eat in order to contain hunger. So just adequate food.
Do,
An
do you
example. Go ahead.
sorry. Do you believe that greed for love is a wise greed?
No, absolutely not. Not only that, but it's not a matter of belief, it's a matter of correct observation. That people
Because
who
our
want and
society,
need love is because they feel inadequate inside. But if you're practicing anapanasati correctly, if you're practicing the Eightfold Path correctly, then you become satisfied. And if you're satisfied, you don't need anything, including love. That love is something that the Christians have been selling for centuries now, telling you that God loves you. How many people actually feel loved by God? Very few. And if you did feel loved by God, what other kind of love would you need? So love is actually something that we don't need, but we want it, and we'll go to all kinds of links. We'll buy face paint. We'll buy fancy clothing. We'll go take lessons in etiquette and all kinds of things because we want to be loved. But the best thing to do is not to just love yourself, but in fact, come to the state that you don't even need to be loved, that you're already okay. So can you
I see.
practice being okay?
I got it.
All
Thank you
right.
very much. Very
Yes,
insightful. Very insightful.
yes. When we're already okay, we don't need anything, and we certainly don't need love, but we have been trained that we need love. What that means is we've been trained to be inadequate, thinking that if we get love, then we'll be adequate. Where in fact the reality is you're already okay. You're already adequate. You've already got all the love you need. You've got air, you've got water, you can walk around, you can smile, you can laugh. What else do you need? You don't need anything. And this is how we practice. We practice being satisfied with the way things are. And then we don't need much of anything. So thank you for your question. We needed that question.
I think that the most greed of our society is obsessed is love and money. You know, society is very obsessed for love. I think love first, and in second, money. So it's two forms of greed that society is totally obsessed.
Precisely so. And if you felt comfortable and satisfied with what you have, then whatever money you've got. And in fact, the reason that we have money is so we can go buy happiness. A lot of people want power because they think that if they have power over other people, they can feel comfortable. They can feel safe and secure because they've got power over other people. But in fact, those who are in power are in danger of losing it. And so power brings on fear. But the ignorance is that, oh, well, that just means I need more power and then I'll feel safe and secure. So they go get more power and now they're even more in danger. But if you have no power at all, we can be very happy and also have no fear. We can feel safe and secure because we have not taken anything from other people. So, Alex, let me hear
Yes.
it, friend.
Oh, no need. Everything's okay. Had a really good time.
All right.
Nice and relaxed.
Giannis, you have something to say?
No, I enjoyed the call. Yep, nothing to say.
All right. So do you feel satisfied right now?
If I think about it, no.
No.
But if I don't
Okay.
think about
Oh
yeah.
my.
All right. Well, start thinking about being satisfied. Everything is okay the way that it is. You don't need anything. You're already all right.
All right.
So, Karwan, how about you? You okay?
Dhammarato, I'm very okay. The thought what you said about the cell phone, I watch a lot of YouTube, and as you know, a lot of it is just not necessary, but it feels like I am addicted to it. Actually, last night I deleted Facebook, and a week ago I deleted already Twitter, which is X. So those two things are deleted, but YouTube feels so addicted. So I'm still a little bit. I feel victim to it, and but I will get over it. Because actually today I woke up. The first thing I did, I watched YouTube, one short, and it was a video about someone stealing someone else's bike. And I got angry about it, and then I went to shower, and while showering I'm still angry about someone having stolen bike of someone somewhere. And what the fuck I'm doing, and that just happened before the Dhamma talk. Yeah. So I'm going to be more more aware of which kind of videos I'm watching. Yeah.
Yes. There's bikes being stolen every second, which means that someplace in the world there's something to be unhappy about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But if you see that as delusional, because all of those bikes that are getting stolen, there's nothing that you can do about it except feel bad.
Yeah.
You can't go recover every bicycle that's stolen and get it back to the owner. Not even if you had millions of dollars and a whole staff to help you, you couldn't stop it. So why try? Oh, the bicycle got stolen. Maybe he didn't even need the bicycle. That's why he left it out. If he really needed the bicycle, he'd have it in bed with him. All right. So
Thank
let's see who. Greg, how about you, Dhamma friend? You got something to say?
Thank you for reminding.
Yes, we need those reminders.
Yeah.
So now it's time for you to start reminding yourself.
That's
Remember,
correct.
you're already okay. Keep remembering you're already okay. You're all right. Not a trouble in the world. Everything is good right now. If you have that, then you can feel safe and secure, comfortable, and satisfied. Dukkha free. Your choice. Ivan, I haven't even picked on you yet.
Yeah, very satisfied. It's almost like I don't know, like if this makes sense. It's like, you know, you open the carpet and you see what's underneath and realize the reason the carpet felt uncomfortable because something is sticking out, and once you see, you just throw it out and everything's okay. Like, you know, the greed, the ill will. There's some weird pleasure in there, right? Like I don't know how to describe it. Like sometimes I see the mind here. There's some satisfaction to be found in those sort of things, but it took a while, right? I don't know how to explain it. It's almost like I'm hypnotized or something, even though I know that this is not good for me. And then like, but when I really just, you know, take a good look at what's really happening, suddenly I just like, oh, you know, I don't have to do that. Like, how stupid, how stupid am I? Something like that. Like, yeah.
See that would be the right way of saying it. The Buddha had that phrase, aha, I see you, Mara. A lot of people think that the Buddha was perfect, but there are numbers of sutras. I'd say at least 20. In fact, there's a whole section in the Samyutta Nikaya called Dhammara, where the Buddha talks about various times when he'll have an unwholesome thought and he'll catch it immediately. Aha, I see you. And chase that unwholesome thought out immediately. So don't think that you're ever going to be completely free from dukkha, but you can develop the skills to see it immediately when it comes up. See it immediately when it comes up. I can do that. That's the attitude that you have, is I can see it. I can see that shit when it comes up. Doesn't mean that I'm going to be free from 5-bay drives. It means that I can see that shit when I make it up.
Sometimes it took a while before the smell of the shit, you know, like really does smell stinky. It's like this weird. Like, you know, it's like when the mind is unified, it sees it clear. Yeah, this is really, you know, a junk of shit, right? But before that, it's like you know, it's like a bunch of justification. It's yeah, it's almost like you have to really just make the effort and just tell yourself, it is, you know, it is shit.
Yes. And that lingering fragrance is a really good reminder to let's practice not making up a bunch of more shit. So that's a good point. Thank you, Ivan. All right. Mikey, why don't you take it from here?
Happily. Yeah, thank you, friends, for being here. It's been quite the splendid Dhamma talk. It's enjoyable to be with friends, listen to the Dhamma, and I've been enjoying seeing you all post here on Discord as well. We also have the Open Sangha Foundation website if you'd like to post there too. That's particularly good if you'd like to post a blog of some kind. And also, if you're watching this on YouTube, check out the links in the video description. We've got links to the Open Sangha Foundation, links to the Dhamma Friends Discord, and a few other things as well. And be sure to subscribe, leave a like on this video, share it if you'd like. And yeah, you can listen to these talks in podcast form as well on Spotify, iTunes, etc. Yeah, thank you very much, friends.
One last thing, and that is if you have something long to post, be aware that Discord has a boundary or a limit. And what I found that after I got something ready and put up there, it says, oh, you're 1,400 characters too much. And so here I am trying to edit it out, but there's a better thing to do. And that is that on Open Sangha Foundation, all you need to do is to post that long thing as a post. And then post the link to it in Discord. Or you can put something in the library on OSF's drive. We have 100 gigabytes of space. We can put all kinds of stuff on that Google Drive. And then after you post those long things on Google Drive, in the there's a place called Users where you can upload stuff. And after you post that, then you can take and put the link to it in Discord. That'll help us eliminate. And I invite you guys to actually start posting something that's got some meat to it. So, anybody got any last things to say before we sign off?
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you
Thank
all
you.
for coming.
Thank you,
Yes.
Dhammarato.
Make sure that you
Thanks,
talk
Dhammarato.
to each other on one-on-one calls. You can set it up. We have Discord's ability to have one-on-one calls. And so I invite you to make friends with each other, to speak Dhamma with each other. Remember that you have happy friends here to talk with. All right? Thank you all. We'll see you soon.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye
you,
bye,
Lord
everyone.
Dhammarato. Bye-bye.
Yeah.